Okay, we live now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session. It's another weekend, and we are happy to be here. So, today, let's see. Ooh, today, we are going to continue building, but just for the sake of those who will be watching this for the first time or those who are joining us for the first time, I'll do a quick recap of what we are doing. And on my screen right now, you can see this titled Current Workflow for Building with AI Tools. There are a lot of AI tools out there. They have different capabilities and different prices, and we are learning to use these tools one after the other. But last week we started a project with this particular workflow. And the workflow involves you identifying a problem to building a solution to the problem. So that's what we started with. And we categorize them into 4 steps. The first step is the problem identification step, where you identify a problem. So last week, if you were in here or you're watching this for the first time, you can go back to the previous video after this session and watch some of the examples on how to arrive at a problem or identify some problems or get inspiration on what problems to solve. I think there was a question like that last week and we addressed it. We also talk about after you've identified a problem and you start brainstorming a solution to the problem, how can you get in-depth understanding of the problem itself? You come up with description of the problem, no, the solution that you want to provide, come up with a detailed description of that solution, and then finally come up with a prompt that you're going to use for the AI to help you build the solution. And we are treating most of these things as people who do not know how to code. However, when it gets to certain points, like it makes sense to have some programming knowledge because sometimes the AI misses things, and if you know your way around it, it's easier. If you don't know it, you would have to spend some more time on it, and eventually the AI may be able to figure it out. Then, once you have gotten your prompt for the solution that you want to build, the one tool that we're using is boat.new. So you go to boat.new, then you give it a prompt that you generate. So those of you who were here last week, you would have seen that usually what I do is for the brainstorming part of the solution, when I want to refine the solution, you go to ChatGPT and you start a conversation with ChatGPT. Say, hey, I want to build A, B, C, D. What do you think? Or give suggestions on how I can approach this. Hello, Judith. I can see you on YouTube. So, yes, if you're watching on YouTube as well, I'll be following up the chat so you can ask questions. Those of you who are live here with me, you can always pause me to ask questions, or you can equally drop any question you have in the chat and I will respond to it. For So talking about the brainstorming session of part of the solution generation, you can do some back and forth with ChatGPT, then finally ask it to give you a prompt. So when you get a prompt from ChatGPT, then you pass that prompt to both the new. So very comprehensive prompts telling it everything that you need into the greatest of details. Then it will be able to build what you want for you. So you will usually want to create an account and sign in. And we did that last week, so I wouldn't want to sweat it that much. I think this was the product that we started working on, right? I think so. Yep. Hopefully when it starts installing, we'll see. Just to see if that is a very project we worked on. Then finally, This is the step that we are on this week. So last week we finished step 1, step 2, step 3, and moved to step 4. In step 4, we are going to download, sorry, we're going to download the application that Bolt has built for us and send it to Cursor, which is another AI tool, but Cursor is more of a code editor. So this is actually VS Code with AI capabilities in there. That's how you can see, you can think of it. So we're going to take the whole code base that this generated for us. And as you can see, this is the landing page of our staff scheduling project. So when we started the discussion, we said, hey, we want to build a tool that people can use to schedule their stuff, or in an organization where staff or employees come to work on different schedules, you'd want to be able to efficiently manage their schedules to allow people to swap schedules and yeah, be able to ask for requests for off time, be able to track the period at which they are at work and all. So we're able to build this simple and beautiful landing page for it. Then outside of that, we built the dashboard as well. I think we can access that with slash dashboard. Why am I using caps? Ooh, dashboard. I hope that was what it was called. Let me see the code base. So you come into app, dashboard. Yes, it's called dashboard. Okay, so this is our dashboard, which looks pretty cool. And everything in here is working fine. And we're going to now continue the functionality. So what we did when we started was to make sure that Bolt is just concerning itself with building as the UI, the user interface, or the front end, as we can call it. The back end we are yet to touch. So all of these are just dummy data that are provided, but seem pretty functional as you can see. And we are just going to move straight to the stage 4 or the step 4, where we are going to now use Cursor to start creating the back end. Sorry. All right. Hello, Jane. You're welcome. Says thanks for this kind of inspiration. You're welcome. I'm happy to do this, Oris. Yeah. So now that we have this project built for us with boats, and you could actually continue building using boats. But the challenge right now is you need to have enough tokens to be able to do that. In a day, if you are using the free version of boats.new, it gives you a certain amount of tokens that you can use. If you are using something, the paid one, and you have enough tokens, then that is fair enough. You can use it. If you're using Cursor as well, the first 2 weeks of Cursor is usually free for the pro version, but you have like in a month, there are some free tokens that you get in a month. However, you can equally get a monthly subscription and be using it throughout the month. Okay, so let's move on to Cursor. And this is what Cursor looks like. This is a project that we started when we downloaded it, and I could have shown you the button is up here. So just click download or download the whole project as a zip file. Then you can unzip it or extract the content. Once you extract the content, you can now bring it into Cursor. As you can see now, the last thing we did last week was to tell Cursor to generate a comprehensive README file by going through the necessary directories in here and coming up with the README file. And the reason we did this is so that Cursor will now get to know all the features in the application. So Cursor should go through the files, go through the scripts that has been written already, and come up with the README for us. Once we've gotten that README, it means that at least Cursor has an idea of what we have built in here. And now we can proceed to build a back end for it. Okay. So that's where we're going to start. I've started the server already. So let's try opening it up. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate, especially those of you who are live here. That's the essence of being live. So you can ask any questions that you have and get answers. If I do not know it, we'll all deliberate on it. If it's something that we all have to research, we'll go research it and we'll learn. The goal is for us to learn something new every single day. That is how we grow. Okay, so yes, this is our preview landing page. We we implemented light and dark mode, so we should be able to switch to dark mode when we want. Okay, this, I think the dark mode settings, even though we didn't put it up there, was here. If I go to dark mode, you see that it switched to dark mode. Oh, okay, yeah. I just saw your message and I got scared that I'm not recording. Yes, so the session is being streamed to YouTube directly. For that reason, I do not need to record it. You can always get it on YouTube. Like, it's publicly accessible right now. Okay, but thanks a lot for reminding me. All right. So we're able to switch to dark mode as you can see right now, and every other thing is equally functional here with regards to the front end. So our goal is now to build a back end for this. Okay. So let's come in here. How are we going to build a back end? And this is going to be more like a tutorial on using cursor. At least I've been using it for a while now, so I've gotten pretty good at using it, and I'm happy to teach you or walk you through how you can get the most out of it. So as I said earlier, we've created our README with it so that all the details, it has an idea of what we are building. The next thing that we want to do is for it to get an outline. That's what I usually do so that it knows exactly what to do. Like right now, if you prompt it to build the back end, it will be relatively challenging for the AI because it doesn't have all the context. So the first thing we want it to do now is to come in here and I'll create something I call to do.md. Usually that's where I want to start from. Then when I create this file, the shortcut I'm going to use is Control I. Control I opens the composer. So this concept is now known as software composing. So what we are doing right now is we are composing software where we are talking to the AI and the AI is building the stuff for us. Okay. So this tool that we're going to be using is called a composer. And the composer right now you're able to add the files that it should consider when you are chatting with it. So currently it has the README, and that was because the last time that we had the session, and I haven't opened this since our last session, we made it create this README. And I asked it, if you can see here, this was a prompt that I gave it. Go through the whole code base, prepare a comprehensive README for this project. And I provided it the directories or the folders that it should go through. So these are the most important folders or directories that we created that contain the script for our project. The rest are equally important, but then they are not scripts that we generated. Those are usually the boilerplate code that comes with the framework that you're using. So we are using Next.js. For that reason, there are a lot of other files that are specifically for every Next.js project. But these, the app directory, component directory, hooks, and the library directory are directories that we create and add the contents that we coded. So that's what both did for us, both the new did for us. And it's good you know these things so that when you're prompting this AI as well, you can tell them exactly where to look. So now we want it to give us a comprehensive outline that we're going to use to finish or build this the final piece of this project. So let's proceed by telling it what to do. Give a comprehensive outline for continuing with this project. Note that we have a functional, forgive my spelling. We have a functional UI, and we are now looking to build the back end and also connect it to a database. Preferably, let's start by focusing on the back end. So that's one of the things that I have come to learn. When you want the AI to do a lot of things at the same time, it ends up getting confused sometimes. So if it is good to be able to provide directions for the tool, like how we started with both and we told both, focus on the front end, don't do any back end. So that's what both did, focused on the front end only and give us the functional front end. Now we are left with the back end and the database. So what I'm going to do is Cursor should begin with thinking about just the back end and get us a functional back end. That means that we are not sending data to the database yet. We can do it. It doesn't have to. I mean, the back end and the database are easily intertwined such that you can equally go ahead and do it and there will be no problem. Maybe I should let's get that done instead of letting it focus, because ideally I would have made it focus on the back end only and use dummy data until we are done with the back end and everything is functional before it moves to the front end. But I know there are some challenges with Prisma that if you are doing it on your own, you may run into. So for that reason, let me ask it to keep doing both the backend and the database so that if we run into such issues, I'll be able to walk you through how to fix those ones. So let's say we are using Prisma as the ORM, and ORM means the last two sessions, I think I asked here and someone told us. So those in the session, what does ORM mean? What is the meaning of an ORM? Yes, yes. Anyone? Anyone?
Is that the object relational mapper?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. So it's an object relational mapper. And essentially what an ORM helps us to do is, instead of us writing the database language, in this case, we are using a PostgreSQL database, or it's a relational database or a SQL database for that matter. Instead of writing the SQL queries ourselves, we are going to stick to the language that we are using, which is JavaScript, or in this case, TypeScript that we are using. So you are going to be writing TypeScript objects or JavaScript objects instead of writing plain SQL. And this tool called the ORM is going to map those objects that we create to the SQL tables themselves and the relationships, everything. So we don't have to write SQL ourselves. Okay, so we are using Prisma as the ORM, and starts by going through the entire code base and make an outline of everything that is needed for this to be a fully functional full stack application that serves the purpose of staff scheduling. Okay, so I'm going to do this in the do this in the to-do.md file. Then let's provide it with those directories. So if you type the @ symbol, it brings these things up, and you can provide it with a specific file, a folder, some code, or a web URL, or some documentations that you want it to have. Or I haven't used Git codebase and Notepad before, but those are also options. So we give it the app directory, we give it the hooks directory, we give it the, if you remember what we gave earlier, components directory, then finally we give it the lib directory. Okay, now let's wait for it to give us our to do. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask your question. Okay. Feels like it's being slow. Okay. Says, I'll create a comprehensive to-do list for completing the staff sync project. Here's a to-do list provides a comprehensive roadmap for completing this project. Would you like me to elaborate on any specific section or help you get started with implementing any particular feature? So for those of you who are now learning some of these things, it makes sense when you now start saying, okay, explain this to me. Why did you add this? Why not that? And things like that. Very important. But let's go through our to do. If we preview it here, it says this is what we need to do. We need to initialize Prisma. We need to design and implement the database schemas. Then we need to handle authentication and authorization. So we're going to use NestAuth for that. Then we're going to set up authentication providers. That's email, password, Google OAuth, then create middleware for protected route. We need to implement role-based access control, admin, manager, staff. Then we add session management, implement password reset flow. Then finally, we need to create the various API routes. In this case, we're going to have user management where you can create a new user. You can get a list of all the users. You can get details of a particular user. You can update a given user, and you can also delete a user. In the same way, we have schedule management. You can create a new schedule. You can list all the existing schedules. You can get the details of a given schedule. You can update a given schedule. You can delete a given schedule, and you can create a template for schedules. Then we have the time clock. So in the same way, this will be the post. Pay attention to these verbs in front here. Post is for creating. So you can create clock in, you can create clock out, you can get all the time entries that have been added, and you can get the statistics for the time entries. There's a lot more data that we can derive from these, that once we are done, this is more like the MVP. Once you're done, you can add features to it, which makes a lot of sense. Then for messaging, we can create messages that send messages. You can get a list of all messages that have been sent. You can get the message thread. That's details about a specific message. Then you can update a message. So you mark it as read. See, we haven't implemented, so there isn't anything to delete a message, things like that. But we'll get to them. We just need to focus on a few things. Then notifications. So create notifications, list notifications, mark the notification as read, update your notification settings. Then real-time features. Set up WebSocket connection. This would be really cool if we get there, because Yes, I know WebSocket, but I haven't used it in any real project before. So it would be pretty cool to see us implement it. WebSocket is what would enable us to have that instant communication bit in our application. So for instance, if I send you a WhatsApp message right now, you automatically receive it. Unlike our regular architecture that we know, the client server architecture that we know, where if I add something like on my interface, let's say we go there and we create something, it will go to the server. Then if somebody logs in or refreshes it on their end, that's when they would see it. So with WebSocket, you do not have to refresh it. Immediately I send you, you get the notification or you get the message directly without having to refresh. So that's real time uh, communication, and we can achieve that with WebSocket. So implement real-time messaging, add live notifications, create real-time schedule updates, and add lifetime clock updates. That would be really cool if we can get there. Then business logic implementation. Now shift creation, assignments, recurring shift patterns, conflict detection, availability. This is really dope if we can get to do all of these up until deploying this and mobile responsiveness. Okay, so it says the next steps is to start with a database schema. Then, okay, so this is like the high level, everything that needs to be involved. There, now it has given us this. It's in here, it knows. So we can say, let's get started. Let's get started. So that's why I prefer to do it this way. Once I have gotten the outline, there is a guide for it to follow step by step everything that needs to be done. And when you get this done, you can come in here and edit it and put an X in here. That's markdown to show that this has been done. So if I show it here, you see that this has been checked. The rest are yet to be checked. Okay. So once the AI gets that done, you can come in here and update it. But let's click this to get started. Says great. Let's begin with the first crucial steps, setting up Prisma and designing our database schema. I'll help you create the initial Prisma schema based on our requirements. First, let's initialize Prisma in your project. So we need to install this. So I can copy this, then come to the terminal and run this code. Paste this, wait for it to run. Then afterwards, we run this other code. So we are installing Prisma client and Prisma itself. The important thing you need to note is that Prisma is a dev dependency. So what this means is that whenever you're building an application, your project itself depends on some code that other people have written. They have simplified certain things. So Prisma is a code base that others have written that will convert your JavaScript objects that you create to represent your database structure to some SQL queries that is like the database language itself. So when it comes to the code base that your project is going to rely on, we have dev dependencies. That means that those ones are only needed during development. So in this case, Prisma itself is a dev dependency. That means it is needed during development. Once you finish developing, we are going to see how we're going to do that, but we are going to convert the Prisma objects that we create, or the schema as it's rightly called, into SQL code. So we're going to convert it into a database code. So it means that in production, we do not really need this Prisma to be working. That is why it is a dev dependency. Then we have the Prisma client. The Prisma client is what will enable us to now interact with our database using Prisma. So that's why we needed to install that as well. Once we've installed these two, and you can see that both have installed successfully, we need to now initialize Prisma by running this. So this will create a directory. Already, this thing created, yes. So this is one of the issues you are likely to face. And that is why I needed us to do it. So the AI has gone ahead to create this directory called Prisma. And it has created a Prisma schema. Ideally, this will be generated when we initialize Prisma. But because it already exists with all of these details in there, it says a folder called Prisma already exists in your project. Please try again in a project that is not yet using Prisma. So it's either you delete this one and restart before you put the data in there, or you go with what this has already given you. I don't think that there is any, I haven't, so almost all the time, because I know this issue, I run Prisma init before I ask it to write into it. But I'm curious to know what will happen. I think once it has created it, we don't have a problem. The other thing that we need for Prisma to work right now is for us to have our .env. That's where we're going to keep our environment variables. Prisma in here, the schema in here, we determine two main things. So if you initialize Prisma, if this had worked, it's going to give us, maybe I should do this for you. Let's copy this and paste it in a new directory. Then we are going to delete what this both created for us so that you see exactly what you'd have gotten if you just run Prisma init. Okay. So for us to proceed, sorry, nps Prisma init, run that command. You could have gotten it here. It's not magic. It is right here. So now that we've run this command, see what it has done. It says you already have, yes, we know that. The set up the database underscore URL. Okay, let's go here. This is the directory it has created for us. This is the directory. We deleted what both created for us initially. So this is what Prisma init itself has created for us. When we go in here, this is the content. There are only two things that are automatically generated for us. And these are the two things that you need to be aware of when you start using Prisma. You have the generator and the data source. So the generator is telling it what client to use. And remember earlier on when I talked about installing Prisma client, I said it is the means through which your code base will be able to interact with your database using Prisma. So that is what we need this client for. And in our case, we are using Prisma client JS. I want to believe that there are a lot of other clients out there that could be used. I have always been using it in a JavaScript application, and by default, this is what I get. So I haven't bothered to search beyond this. The data source, you are going to provide two information about your database. The first one is you tell it what kind of database provider. Database provider in this case is telling us what type of database are you using. So it could be PostgreSQL as you see now. We could use SQLite. SQLite is a very simple database, file-based database. It's going to literally create a file with your data inside it down here. It is the simplest of them. So if you are now starting and you don't know anything about databases, you can always start with SQLite. And this is just file based. Then you can equally use even MongoDB, which is not a relational database. So down here, you can see it's telling you some things. Set a provider of the data source block in your schema.prisma to match your database. And the options include PostgreSQL, MySQL, SQLite, SQL Server, MongoDB, or CockroachDB. So all of these are providers that you can use. In our case, we are going to use PostgreSQL because that is my newfound love. That's the only reason why we are using it. But hey, most organizations that want scalable database solutions use, if it is a relational database, they use PostgreSQL. So it makes sense if you learn to use it and know how to use it. So we have this defined, and now the next important thing is your database URL. And see that Prisma has this enclosed in an env method. What this means is that you need to define in your environment variables a variable called database underscore URL. So this.env is here, and by default, Prisma has put a dummy data in here. That is showing you an example of what the database should look like. So usually it is the type of provider, in this case, dot / then the username. So everything here is the username column, the password, then at localhost, which is like the host where you are hosting the application. Then this is the port, the default port for PostgreSQL. Then you also provide the schema that you are using. So the database name and the schema. This is the structure for the URL, the database URL when you're using Prisma. You're using PostgreSQL. If you are using something like SQLite, it would have read something like file, then the name of the file, maybe db, let's say, db.sql, something like this. Okay, so that is pretty easy. It would have just created the file in here for you. Your database will be there. But because we want to use PostgreSQL, we have to find a solution. And one of such solutions that I've come to love is neon.tech. You can equally create or install PostgreSQL on your machine itself. So I currently have PostgreSQL installed. If you see, this PG admin is the user interface that I use to manage my PostgreSQL databases locally. But for the sake of this example, because I know sometimes it's headache to be able to get PostgreSQL running. So what I'm going to do is to create a new database using NeonDB. So how you get there, you could easily have Googled it, but then you can find it at neon.tech. Neon.tech will take you to NeonDB. And if it is your first time, you have to create an account. Once you create an account, you create a project. So in this case, we're going to create a new project. There's a limitation when you're using the free version, but I think we still have some generous amount of project to be able to create. We're going to stick with Postgres version 16. Cloud service provider, stick with AWS. The region, you usually want to choose a region that is closer to where your users will be using the application. So if my users are going to be in, say, Africa, AWS has a region in Africa, but then it's only in South Africa, except that it is not available to choose here. So these people are not making that available. So the closest that you're going to use if you're choosing Africa will be somewhere in Europe, because Europe is relatively closer. The reason this is important is because you want to eliminate as much latency. So the technical term is latency. How fast do people get access to that database? Because you are pulling data, and if the data center, this is where the data will be stored. If it is very far, at least the time to get to it, even though it can be done in seconds, it is relatively longer than if the data center was closer to you. So that's how you want to think about it. In this case, we can choose Europe, and I prefer to put this to the maximum, and I say create project. So now this has created a database for us. All we need to do, because we are using Nest.js, we could go ahead and copy this, but you're using Nest.js. It shows you an example here. and you get the URL from this end. So click on that and click copy snippets. Very important when you are doing things like this. You see, they are hiding the password because by clicking on it, it's showing. But when you are doing things like this, you do not want to expose your password to anyone, because as soon as somebody gets access to this, they are able to get into your database. They can connect to your database and perform various actions like deleting the data in there or inserting data in there. This is for demo purposes, and I'm definitely not using this for any official work. So I'm happy to paste it here for you to see. And this is the database link that we got. So I've pasted it in replacing what was originally in there. That's the dummy data. So now we have a database set up, and we have provided it. It says run Prisma DB pool to turn your database schema into a Prisma schema. This is if you already had a database running and you wanted to now convert your database structure into some Prisma schema. Then you run the Prisma DB pool to turn that into your Prisma schema. Then finally, Prisma generate. This is also very important. When you create your schema, currently we do not have anything in here, but you remember that Cursor generated some for us already. So if we add our schema to it and we run, if we don't run Prisma generate, the Prisma client does not know about the update to our schema. So anytime you update the schema, you want to also go ahead and run Prisma generate. This will update the Prisma client. That means that you are now interacting with the most updated version of your database. So that is one thing that you want to take note of. Let's go back to the schema that were given by Cursor. Then we just have to copy from this part downwards. Is it copying? Oh, what is happening? I could equally just do Control A and copy everything. Then when I go into the original schema, I'll paste it. There will be a duplicate up there. So it's giving me that error because I copied everything. Now I delete this one that I just brought in. Okay. So this is our schema. This is just comments that you can delete out of your code. If I save this, this is a schema that we're working with. What this means is that we're going to have a database table called user, and user will have the following information: the ID, the email, name, password, image, row. Anytime you see a question mark here, what it means is that this field is optional. If you do not see a question mark, it means whenever you are creating that thing, you need it. I would prefer, so these are sometimes, if you don't know these things, it's different. But if you know them, for instance, this is trying to generate the ID using this CUID. I haven't used it before, but Prisma is able to generate them automatically. So I would prefer we use that instead. The auto-generated in the, instead of using this. So in that case, I would have to prompt the AI to do that for me. Okay. So you can go through it and see the various fields within the various tables. We have created a schedule table. We've created a shift table. We've created a, this is not a table. So the tables are the models. The enum defines more of like a dictionary where whatever you are adding to that specific thing should conform to. So we are saying that the shift status here, the status of the shift belongs to this shift status, and this shift status is defined as an enum that has only these fields. That means anytime somebody is updating or adding a shift, the status of the shift can either be scheduled, in progress, completed, or cancelled. You can't have anything outside of this unless you come in here and update it. And it says this option says the default is scheduled. So if you created a new shift, by default is going to be scheduled until.
Hello.
Hi, Joshua.
Yeah, I think someone is asking a question in the chat.
Oh, haven't seen the chat pop up. Okay. Hey, can't even find the chat. Oh, okay. Says Prisma generate is kind of similar to Django's make migrations migrate. Yeah. So not let me try and explain this. I know trying to bring Django here. Yes. So it's not the same thing. I don't think we have the equivalent of generate in Django. Okay. The reason I say this is for Prisma, we can make migrations with Prisma Migrate. So that is like the make migrations in Django. But when we say generate, it's like before I can interact with my database, remember that I said Prisma itself is a dev dependency that we use to convert the code to SQL. But to be able to interact with it, we use the Prisma client. So Prisma generate is just letting the client know that, hey, I've made some changes to my database. Just be aware. It is not creating any migrations. If you want to create migrations, the migrations in this case is where you convert your Prisma schema itself to SQL or to the database language. So that will be done by Prisma Migrate. But Prisma Generate is, oh, I've made changes to, even after you have migrated, like almost all the time when you run Prisma Migrate, it will end up running Generate afterwards. The reason is that it needs to tell the Prisma client. Prisma client is the guy that allows you to now interact with your database. So it needs to tell it that, hey, I have updated my database. I just updated my database. So note that it has been updated and use the updated version. If you have run migrations and you've deployed new tables, but you've not run Prisma Generate, you still be interacting with the old code base, the old database structure. It would not know that you have new tables. So sometimes, especially if you are using a linter like I am using, like you begin to see these red or underlines showing that there are errors in your code. And it could probably tell you that the field that you are trying to access does not exist in your current database. And that's only because you have not updated the Prisma client yet. I hope that makes sense or that's helpful. All right. Sorry, guys. I need to take some water. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's keep going. So for the schema, can we use the Prisma auto increments for the IDs instead of CUID? I prefer that. I don't know why they do not use that. Okay, so let's see what it does. Currently, if you see any ID, it has this CUID, but that's not what I prefer. So let's see it make the changes. Ooh. Okay, so you can see this is the Prisma default auto increment feature. Because the CID, UID, CUID would generate random IDs. It's trying to generate unique IDs, but it will be so random. Sometimes I do not like it. This would start with the first ID being one, second one, two, three, four. I prefer it that way than just general random IDs. If I'm using MongoDB, MongoDB's own is something else, and I never have a problem with it. However, with Prisma, I think I prefer this approach. Okay, so now that we've gotten that done, ideally we're supposed to run the Prisma generate, then run the migrate. So this migrate, please pay attention to it. This is where we are now going to convert all of these things that we have created to SQL and also push it to our database. So currently we do not have any tables in our database. These are tables. We do not have any of them. But if we come and run, so let's try running this. Prisma generates, run that. Then when we are done, we'll run the migrate dev. Says run this. Pay attention to this directory here, the Prisma directory. It's going to create a new directory called migrations in here. And inside that migrations directory, we're going to have the name. So another directory with this name, with the current date. Then inside it, we'll have a file called migration.sql. That is where all of these will be converted to SQL. So as I said, we have a migrations directory here. And inside it, we have another directory with the command, the name that we provided here. We called it init. Where is it? Yeah, over here. We said nps prisma migrate dev, then dash name. So the name we gave it is init. So it takes the timestamp, the current timestamp, then underscore the name that you gave it here. Then inside that directory, we have migrations.sql. So in here, everything that we wrote over there is what has been converted into this SQL. So what this means is that ideally, if you were not using Prisma and you just wanted to interact directly with your database, you would have to write all of this code yourself. You have to write the SQL code. That means that you have to go and learn another language that is the SQL, structured query language, that you have to learn to be able to write these things. But because we are using Prisma, the advantage is that if I am using SQLite or PostgreSQL or MySQL or any other provider in Prisma, I can use the same thing. Like the same schema that I've written here, I do not need to change it. So now, even though I've written this and it is for PostgreSQL, if tomorrow we decide that we are no longer using PostgreSQL, we want to use SQLite or we use something else, then we just come here and we change it, and that's all. The code will work out of the box. But if we had not used Prisma and we went ahead to write our SQL code ourselves, this is specific to PostgreSQL. So we cannot use the same thing for SQLite. We cannot use the same thing for MySQL. That means that if you did not use an ORM and you use the query language itself, if you are switching the provider, you have to rewrite your database structure in the query language for that specific provider. So that's the advantage of using an ORM like Prisma, where we just define it once and we can switch the database to different types when we want. Okay, so now if we come back here and we refresh this, we should see our tables in here. So you can see that we have our tables, the user table. It contains the following fields: the ID, the email, name, those things that you saw that we defined in the Prisma schema are all here. So now we are good to proceed. We can go ahead and say proceed. Make sure we are in our to-do. Say proceed. Let's see what next is going to work on. So we've initialized Prisma. We've implemented our DB. Now, all of these have been implemented as structures, right? We have to confirm, but user model organization, let's see, organization is here, user is here. So we know that these two have all been implemented. Then organization too has been implemented. Department or team. Department is here. So that also has been implemented. Shift is also here, has been done. Schedule is here, that has also been done. So that's how you follow up to make sure that it's doing the right thing. Time entry has also been done. Message model, message has also been done. Notification has also been done. So we are making good progress. Shift templates. It didn't do the shift templates. Okay, so we can't see shift templates, but we can see the shifts. So we keep track of this. This is what we've done so far. Then it says, sorry, I'll read the message shortly. It says, okay, let's proceed with setting up the database and authentication. First, let's create the .env and then run the initial migration. We've done that already. Shouldn't have touched it. So this is one of the things that you need to know. It can override some of the things that you've done. So if I accept all right now, it's going to override this part. It has added, it thought that you didn't have .env, so it has added everything in .env. And it's giving you the example Postgres database URL that you would likely use, but that's not what we want. This is what we want. So the thing is for us to reject, this red means is deleting it. The green means is bringing that in. So make sure that we are not, otherwise you can equally copy this. It's also doable. You can copy the one that you do not want to lose. Okay. You copy that and hey, where are you going down? I hope I've copied everything. Okay. So I can copy that, or better still, I say Control N to reject it. Control N rejects these two as well, but I could equally have copied that and do Control N, then paste that afterwards. Then I'll accept this so that I do not lose this. This is one that I do not want, but all of these are necessary configurations that we need. So let's say, yes, I accept it, but I'm going to delete this. Remember that this is the right database one. If I didn't pay attention, I didn't come in here and I just accepted all, it would have deleted your database. You'll be sitting there thinking that, oh, my database is supposed to be working. I don't know why it's not working. But then the actual URL has been deleted. You can always go back to your source where you got the database and grab it, right? But make sure that you're not losing track of it. Okay, now we have gone through this. The next, now let's install the required dependencies for authentication. So for authentication, we are using Nest Auth and bcrypt.js. Nest Auth is that package that we are going to use largely for the authentication. If you want to implement Google sign in, like sign in with Google or sign in with any of the other providers, we are going to be able to use Nest Auth to do that. Bcrypt.js is a package that we can use to create what you call an encryption. So generating tokens, hashing passwords, and things. We will do that with Bcrypt.js. And these are just the types for, because we are using TypeScript. So one of the key things that you want to learn, especially this is for those of you who are interested in learning development itself and not just using the AI tools. Today, I'm delving more into the development so that at least those of you who are into software development and you are learning to code, you would appreciate some of these things instead of just following what the AI is doing. Next Auth, I mean, one of the key things that you want to do is always find the documentation so that you know how to maneuver things, because sometimes the AI is making a mistake. It's not even aware that something has been changed. you need to come to the documentation. And the easiest thing you can do is to find where that thing is. So if I come here and I say, for our case, we are going to be using credentials. And you can only know about this if you have gone through the NERSC auth documentation. Credentials is where you allow people to sign in with either their username, their email, password. So that's what we are going to use. So if I go to credentials and you see there are some provision here, what I can do, if let's assume that the AI is struggling to figure out what I want, then I'll come and copy this link and provide it in my chat with it and say docs. Then I will add a new doc and provide this particular documentation that I've copied for it. Otherwise, I could also provide it as a web URL for it to now, okay, no. So with the web, it will actually go and search on the internet for information on that specific thing. Okay, so that was just, by the way, know how to use or how to find documentations. Very important. Let's copy these and run them. Now, let me get back to your question and respond to it whilst this runs. Okay, I have the issue since yesterday. I'm building a social auth of a website. It's only Google that allow redirection to a local host URL, but others do not allow. So I want to customize my local host to something like mysite.com, still listening on the same port. So I've been on this since yesterday. Customization was successful. Tried to test with Ping and Curl was successful, but checking the URL on my browser while my local server is on, prove about it. I've done everything I could do. Please help. So you have the URL right now. And what is the URL linking to? If you can unmute yourself, we can have the chat. When you say your local host server, how is that? How did you get the URL and how is it linking to your local host
Yeah,
server?
so I actually did I customized my host file in the etc folder. So to redirect the
Locally.
one, yes, locally.
So when you say you have gotten the URL like mysite.com, it felt like you've purchased an online domain.
No.
So the easiest way around this is to not go that route at all. Use a tool like Ingrok.
Okay.
So
I've been
Ingrok,
hearing this. I've been hearing this since yesterday.
you've been hearing it since yesterday.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. So let me show you. I use this a lot. So
Okay.
even recently, I use it to SSH into my own machine. So if I go to Ingrok and forgotten how to get the HTTP. Okay, Ingrok HTTP. Then give it a port. So Ingrok HTTP. Our server is currently running on port 3000, right? Port 3000.
3,000.
So if we do Ingrok HTTP 3000, now this port 3000 that we are running can be accessed with this URL. This URL is forwarding to my local host for 3000. So if I
Okay.
open this URL, view site, you can see. So
Yeah.
if I share this with you, all of you, you should be able to access my local like
Okay.
right now as we are talking until I close that port forwarding that is happening.
Okay.
It's my so just for confirmation's sake, any of you can try it. It should link you to the website that we are building. But if I come back to this and I close it, if I cancel this, you're not going to have access to the site any longer. So if you are looking for a temporary solution, that's how you do it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
I connected with the site.
Come again.
I
You
just
you
click
can.
on the link. I
Mhm.
just click on the link in share now. So
All right.
it's
All right. Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
that's
And
how you solve that problem. Right.
so
You're
that means
welcome.
I'm gonna install Ingrok on my terminal, right?
Yes, yes. You
Oh,
need
okay,
to.
okay,
It's
okay. Thank you so
the
much.
you're welcome. Oh, I just canceled it. But if you are struggling, I think I tried installing it recently, but the Wi-Fi I'm on is school Wi-Fi and they blocked, like they detect it as a virus. So I couldn't download it for Windows directly. So what I did was use Chocolate. I think where is platform? Uh oh my goodness. What's happening? I don't know why I can't find your download. Download Ingrok. Download Ingrok. Okay. Yeah. So ideally you should be able to just download this and install. But if you had any issues, just as I had, then you can use Chocolate. So I had to install, first of all, I had to go and install Chocolate on my
All right.
device, then use this commands to now install Ingrok. And once I've installed it, I have access to it. So yeah, that was a workaround that I did. Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
for the question. Let's get back to what we are doing. Where was I? Installing stuff. Okay, so now we've installed these things that we're supposed to install. Say, let's create the next auth configuration that has been created. Prisma client instance. So this is also very important. I said that the Prisma client is where it's what allows us to interact with our database. Now, in the code itself, when we want to interact with the database, we have to do that through Prisma client. So that means that every time we want to interact with Prisma, we have to import Prisma client and use it. And it initialize or instantiates the Prisma client. The best practice is that you instantiate Prisma client in just one place, then reuse it throughout your application. Otherwise, what it means is that you're going to establish multiple connections to your database if you are instantiating at every point in time in your code. So we want to create a single file. That is what it has created called prisma.ts. Usually we tend to put this in the lib directory. So let me confirm where it puts it. Yes. So in lib directory, this is it. So this is what you want to do. Import Prisma client from Prisma client. Then we are setting it. You don't need to understand all of these things. Usually what I'll even do is I come online. If I was building, I come online and I say Prisma, Next.js, Next.js, best practices. This is my search. And it always takes me there. And I just have to copy this code. That's all. That's all I do. So instead of using what this has provided me, I use this from their own documentation. And it's almost the same. If you look at this, it is exporting Prisma. This is what Kensa provided. It's exporting Prisma. That means anytime that we are in there, in our code base, we can just use this Prisma. We import it from this file and we use it. And if a connection has been established already, it's not going to re-establish connection, or it's not going to re-instantiate another instance of the Prisma client. Okay, but this is from their docs, so that's what I would use. Then the next thing is let's create a middleware to protect our routes. Okay, Next.js has, if you're using this auth, you can ensure that only some routes are accessible to the public. Like if you're not logged in, you can access it. But then there are some routes that you need to be logged in before you are allowed to access. So that is what we are doing with this middleware. Then we are saying the next thing is, oh, we've run the initial migrations already. We just have to double check that it didn't make any changes to the database schema. So no changes have been made to the database schema, which is good. Then the routes that it created, the next auth route. Okay, very important route. So this is a default way to create the auth. You need to know how this is done if you are using Nest auth. So to use Nest auth, you need to create the API directory. Inside the API directory, you have to create the auth directory, and inside the auth directory, you have to create this Nest auth directory before you create your route.ts. Then we are having this issue underlined. Because I know these things, it's easy for me to understand what is happening, right? But what is happening here is that we've not installed this. The other way around it is you check the problems here and you can copy this and give it to the AI to help you fix it. This other one too is a problem because it says has no exported, but if you check, oh, we've not saved it. So we've not saved this file, hence it cannot find this. Let's proceed to save it because we've exported it and we are exporting it as default. This is one other thing that you should note. So if we save it, we are exporting it as default. So the problem here is that it's, even though we are exporting it, when you are using the curly braces to call it, it is not looking for the default export. It's looking for any other export apart from the default export. So we have to remove this curly braces from it for it to work. But if you are not aware of it, you'd have to just copy the issue here and give it back to the AI for it to fix it for you. We can equally also see property row. Property row does not exist on type user. So we have to confirm that in our schema that we have, is there anything like row under user? So if you go to the user, we have row. So if it is not seeing it, it's probably because we have not generated a client, like the Prisma generates needs to be run for it to note it, or maybe something else is happening. Now, for now, we know that at least the Prisma adapter isn't working yet. So we can go fix that. Let me just copy this as well and give it to it. Promotion Studio. Hi to you watching on YouTube. Okay. Yep. So let's see what it tells us. Says, let's fix the authentication setup. First, you need to install the correct dependencies. And as part of the dependencies, now you can see that it has added the Auth Prisma adapter here. And sometimes you need to pay attention to the changes this thing make. If you just go ahead and accept all, we can do accept all, and keep battling with the errors. But sometimes it's good to pay attention. It's deleting this part of the code that we added, but then it's replacing it with the same thing. So that's fine. The rest, we haven't really looked into it. And now it's telling us to run this code. Some of it we already have installed. So it doesn't make sense to install everything. But if you are an absolute beginner and you don't know what is happening, you can just go ahead and run everything and see whether these problems get solved. Ideally, this problem will only be solved when that has been added as a dependency. So currently, this is the dependencies that we have. So if you see the Auth Prisma adapter, see, the Auth Prisma adapter has now been added here. So at least that has been installed. And you can see that the issue here is gone. We still have some other issues. Let's see what the issue is. This issue. So we can come here and say, now we have that, but we are still getting this error. Copy these error messages and paste it. Any questions? The authentication bit is something that nowadays I do not enjoy doing. So what I've tried to do, and I think I talked about it during the live stream, is that I've tried to build my boilerplate that handles everything. Let's see. Okay, yes. So this is my boilerplate that I built about 2 weeks ago, and it contains like the various things: role-based access control, authentication. These are things that usually when you're starting any project, you're going to have to create. So I've built them so that I do not sweat these ones. So for instance, the auth directory that we are looking at, no, not this one. Let's go to API. API, this particular one, this route is what we are looking at right now. And you see, like in my case, I'm using this very simple one. So instead of letting the AI fight over itself, trying to figure all of these things out and making the mistakes one after the other, I can literally come here and use what I have. And this requires this particular one. Then inside lib as well, there is an auth file that I've created with the auth options. Okay, so maybe I should just copy this just to save time. So in here, this route, we're going to have only this. Let me go back and find out something. Okay, yes, it was using the right Next.js, but we don't have this auth created in the lib directory. So we come to lib directory, then we create auth.ts. Then inside that, let's go look for the content of this. Lib is here, auth.ts. Then this is where I've configured you. Let me paste in here, then we try to walk through it. Okay, so quickly, the Prisma adapter that we are struggling with, we are, oh, okay. So I've seen the issue. We are using Nest Auth, but Cursor AI was installing Auth.js. So they are, will I say brothers? Like the advanced version of Nest Auth. Nest Auth was originally created as part of, I mean, a dependency for authentication in Nest.js. But now they try to scale it such that it's not only useful for Nest.js but any other JavaScript application authentication. So it is now called Auth.js. You can see that it's the same logo. This is Nest Auth. This is Auth.js. So the AI gets confused sometimes. It started off using Nest Auth, but then when it came to using the adapter, it's rather pulling the adapter from Auth.js. If you don't know these things, this is how you're going to end up running into issues and struggling a lot. Okay, so instead of, let me go to my package.json. Instead of having package this, I'll delete that. Maybe I don't just want to delete it. I want to uninstall it so that the node modules 2 will be uninstalled. So the same command that you use to run it, this is install, we just make it uninstall. Uninstall. Then this time around, we are going to install this. So you can copy that. Hopefully that is copied. Then we run npm install this. So hopefully it gets rid of that. Then Prisma DB, we called RS Prisma. So need to fix that. Bcrypts. I thought we installed bcrypt already. What is this thing? Cannot find model bcrypt. Oh, it means we probably installed bcrypt.js. There are two different things. I don't know why we have them as different. Okay, so you see, we installed bcrypt.js. So if I want to stick to using what we have here, then we have to install bcrypt instead of bcrypt.js. If we want to use bcrypt.js, then we may have to make some changes in here. Okay, so let's say we want to use the same thing. So npm install bcrypt. This means we may have to uninstall bcrypt. It means we may have to uninstall the bcrypt.js. They perform the same function, so there's no reason having both of them. Okay, this has been installed now. Now the issue is with the types. So you just copy this line here that says and try this. So you just run that and you'd install the types. We can afterwards uninstall npm uninstall. Think we should be allowing the AI to be doing most of these things. Yes. Now we've uninstalled those things, we've gotten rid of these, but we still have some issues. This is saying the type. Okay, user has hashed password. So if you look at what we have here, let's say the schema that we have in here. Let me go to Prisma and go to schema. Trust me, this boilerplate code are things that people are building and selling for several dollars. So it makes sense if you have one, especially if you are someone who works on multiple projects, it makes sense for you to have a boilerplates like that or a template that you can always use. Let's say boilerplates with okay, let's say SAS. So this is some of it. There are a lot of them. A lot of people are building these things, and some of them come with different functionalities. So you can see Binance.js, SAS, boilerplate code. You have authentication with Click. Click authentication is pretty easy, but if you're going to have more users, it may be relatively expensive if you are going to have more users. Then multi-tenancy with Click. I think the last time I was explaining what multi-tenancy is, roles and permissions, Stripe subscription. So if you buy this boilerplate code, the code base already comes with all of these. If you can't buy them, and someone like me, I want to build my own stuff, put my own unique things in there. So that is why I coded this so that I can reuse it. In fact, to start the whole project, I could have just started off with this as my boilerplate code and build on top of it. So I do not have to do all of these other configurations. Here in the users, I have hashed password as one of them, one of the fields. In this our case, we do not have hashed passwords. So that's why we are getting this error. So in that case, we would have to go to our Prisma schema. Where is the schema here? Under users, it is called password. So we didn't call it hash password, we are calling it password. In that case, when we come back, instead of having hash password, we put password. And you see the problem has been solved. Let's see if there's any other problem. Authorize is still running as an error saying this. So the type that is returning. Yeah. So in that case, with what I have done, I have to make Cursor aware that I've changed this and changed stuff, right? So I have updated the code to use Nest Auth Prisma adapter instead and have created an auth.ts file with the auth options. Currently, we have this error. Then you can pass that to it. Sorry, we have this error. Oh, this is just TypeScript error. Okay, so it's one of the things that I don't like getting into when I start a project. I almost always prefer to build a project before I even think about authentication because sometimes it can be a bit messy. Some tools like Click makes it very, very easy to handle authentication. You don't have to worry about even the interface. Click, 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 click auth. You don't have to worry about the interface. They provide everything. But sometimes I personally like more customization. So you get this out of the box if you use Click. All of these things, managing user accounts, all of those things, verify, OTP, like these components are available for your use. And it is free for when you have up to 10,000 monthly active users. So if you are building a product that you think, hey, this product is only 5 or 10 people who are going to use it, 200 people maximum, 1,000 people maximum, 10,000 people maximum, and you are not going to have to pay for it, it's perfectly fine. If you are building a project that is having more than 10,000 monthly active users, then obviously you're making enough money to be able to pay for this. If you are making this amount, then yes, you should be able to pay for it. So maybe in the next project that we do, we would use Click just to hasten up the process. We still have an error here, token.id. So let's just pass this to it. Okay. So once, let's go back to our to-do to make sure that we are on track. We are implementing next auth integration. That's what we are on. Providers, we want to use this. That is what we have done. But we have not created the login screens, right? So we need to do that. Okay. So now the backend for logging in has been created. We are yet to do that for the creating account. So authentication is mostly respect to logging in. When somebody wants to log in, you want to authenticate that they are the right person. So in our case, we are using password to authenticate, password and email to authenticate them. That has been done, but we are yet to create the interfaces for those ones. So can we create the UI for user registration and login? Remember to align this UI with the current UI of the platform. Then link or then connect that UI to the back end so we can register and log in successfully. Okay. The one thing that I have done a lot of projects. Even in the past couple of weeks, I've created a lot of projects, but I didn't think about reusing code base. And that's one thing that you want to learn to do if you want to speed up things. So if you want to learn to speed up your development, that's one key thing. Some of the code, especially when you're writing it, you should always think about writing it in such a way that you can reuse the same thing for other projects. So that when you are doing, let's say today I built a new app, tomorrow I want to build a similar thing, uses similar functionalities. There's no reason for me to go and start the whole thing from scratch. This we can easily fix. This is just the comma use HTML entities. Okay, so now we have the auth directory that has been created here, log in and register. So we can go to our URL And instead of dashboard, we go to register. Let's see what we got. Okay. I think there was an error trying to show up. Okay, what's not there? Bcrypt.js. That's strange. Thought we installed Bcrypt.js. Can't resolve Bcrypt. Did we uninstall? We didn't uninstall the other one. Or did this guy go to change it? Sometimes if you are not paying attention, the AI just goes in there and change anything. So compare is not coming from Bcrypt.js, it's coming from Bcrypt, right? That's what we did. Yes, it's coming from Bcrypt. Because it changed it to Bcrypt.js. Let's uninstall Bcrypt.js. Uninstall Bcrypt.js. Okay. Now let's try. Test user, test email, password 123. Organization name, test organization, subdomain. Did we even have subdomain in there? I didn't even pay attention. Then create account. There is a problem. Bcrypt.js again. Oh goodness. So it used Bcrypt.js. We have uninstalled Bcrypt.js in the route for register. So let's go to the API register routes. Use Bcrypt.js and we just uninstalled Bcrypt.js. I'm not sure if why is it not if we just uninstalled it, why are we not getting the linter error? Did it not work? It worked. I don't know why we are not getting a linter error, but we can prompt it here and say, pick that specific file, register routes. It's here. It's say, let's use Bcrypt instead of Bcrypt.js. And all of these, you can find their how is it called? Their documentation at npmjs.com. Okay. Yeah. So if you come here and you look for Bcrypt, this is Bcrypt.js. So you can open both of them to look at how to use them. So if you want to learn how to use some of these things, you just come to npm.js and find out. This is Bcrypt. You require Bcrypt, then you create what you call sort rounds. Then this is what your database would look like. Then to hash a password, so you create this. This is how you hash a password. Remember, when you are saving the password to your database, you don't want to save the plain password. The reason this is important is when somebody get access to your database directly, or yes, they get access to your database directly and they pick the password there, they shouldn't still be able to access it. But right now that I'm saying it, it doesn't even make sense to me, because if the person has access to your database, then they have access to all the data that the user has access to. So make sure they will not have access to your database in the first place. So this is where the compare was being used. The compare function, this is how it's used to check a password. So someone enters the password, you would want to check this password against the hashed version in the database. This is how you handle it with compare. Then Bcrypt.js is a bit different. So says optimize Bcrypt in JavaScript with zero dependencies. Okay. And the use is similar, but they use different terminology sometimes. So as you can see, this is how you hash a password. This is how you compare a password. I think they look almost the same. I've not really sat down to look at the differences between them, but yeah, something for you to note. Okay, so now we are using bcrypt. Let's go back and try registering a user. Create account. Something went wrong, registration failed. Let's look at our logs. Do we have any logs telling us what happened? Nope. Okay. We don't have any logs. There is validation here, missing fields required. So that is not the issue. Can we, let me just confirm that our database is up and running. There are times that this database is not trust. There are times that for some few seconds it's not working. So you would have to retry. That's happened to me before. That's why I say that. Otherwise, now it is still not working. Registration failed, something went wrong. This registration failed, something went wrong. It's something that you have written in your code. Because the AI did it, you don't have an idea, but it's something that is inside your code that you are giving feedback to. So we can go to that page where the auth page from here, register, then this page. That's where the error is being shown. Says something went wrong. This is where we are throwing the error. Okay, so one of the things we can do is to try and console log the results so that we see what happens when console log the results. Let's see. Okay, let's check the browser since it's a front end component. The server. So failed to load resource, the server responded. So it's not getting to the server or the server has a problem. That means the problem is coming from our back end. So one of the things you can do is to just give this until I get something went wrong, error when trying to register a user. Then I pass this to it. Hopefully it fixes it. But the problem will be in API register route, this place. So we have to come in here, probably add some console logs just to see what is happening. If you are not coding yourself, all of these things, you have to lean on the AI to be doing it for you. Okay. So you can see, just as I said, it has just added console.logs, and this will help us understand exactly where the problem is happening. So now we would expect to see some logs in here. What's the error? Okay. Sometimes for this, you just need to solve it with that. Okay. Or you define the type for the error, but this is TypeScript specific error. Not to sweat that right now. Okay, it says next static generation bailout. That's the database error. Interesting. Database error. Okay. This is the error that is submitted. So we can give this error. We can check inside. This, all of those things have been written by it. So, but I don't know if these ones are not running, then probably it's not even getting there in the first place. Was there an interaction with it? Because ideally this should run and log it, but it didn't log it. That's strange. You let me pass this to it. Ooh. Static page generation. Let's fix this by probably marking our API route as dynamic. That's strange. This is not something I've encountered before, but why will it consider this as not being dynamic? Oh, wait. Inside us. I don't think that should have been a problem. Anyway, This is strange. I haven't encountered such an error before. Okay, so now we are still having the issue, but no longer the original issue that we had. I still wonder why we are not getting any logs from here. It makes me feel it's not even getting in here. Because if it's getting in here, we should be seeing these things logged in the console, but we are not seeing anything as such. So it means it's not even getting there. Registration failed. Oh, let's copy this. See. The main reason why nowadays building anything, I prefer to just go use my boilerplate code because this is not the main functionality of the application I want to build. And every application I build, I'm going to have to do this. So imagine if I have to be debugging everything like this. So one of the things that you can do for yourself if you are doing any of these projects is to also try and create that kind of template for you. There are free ones out there as well. I think Vestel also has some. Vestel, let's say SaaS templates. I think they have some, and some of them could be free, hopefully. Yeah. A link in bio SaaS built with this. I don't know if every one of them is free, but okay, this is one of them. Let's view the demo, what you get. Uh, hey, why? I want to deploy something I've not seen. Why? These people are this serious? Anyway, you may have to play with it to find. I think they have some boilerplate templates that people use. Content layer, block starter. So depending on the projects that you're doing, you can come here and get some templates to begin with. But let's go back to our code. It says let's debug this first. Let's check if we can connect to the database by visiting this in your browser. If that's working. Wait, did they change the database? The database is not changed. That is the correct database. Then what is the problem? Because it's not even getting here. You can see that now we are logging, starting registration process from scratch, like trying to log that to see if it is really working. Let's go back and run the code and see. Try and run this. Still getting the database error. Why is this still here? Interesting. It's something that I've never encountered before. Anyway, it's really strange. Okay, let's give this. So as it stands now, it's not getting to this one at all. And I seriously do not know why it will not get here.
Can we check the API URL?
That's the front end is using, right? Yeah. Let's double check that. This is making a call to alt register. So that should work because it's alt then register. We've not made, did we make any changes to the database in the registration route and handle the error properly? Here's the corrected version. Added proper type checking, imported Prisma types, then added more. Hmm, this is interesting because I don't see an issue here. After you receive the data, try submitting this, then you're making a fetch call, a post call to this URL. Interesting. Let me run just in case we've not updated, but it's not even getting to the back end, so I doubt that is causing any problem. We can't generate it because this is running. We need to stop that and run this. If no changes have been made, we wouldn't be asked to add a name. If changes have been made, then it's going to tell us to add a name to the migration. So it means changes were made to it. I don't even remember what. Oh, no, we didn't change the password thing. Okay. Let me just call it fixed. I don't know what changes were made. I don't remember seeing any change made. Okay. So now that we know that has been updated, we have our Prisma client generated. Let's try again. So this should work fine. Okay, let's refresh this. And hopefully we don't get that error again. Still there. That's strange. Page 32. Let's check page 32. Did this? That is console login. That. No way. Auth API auth register. Oh, so you see. But that's not page. API auth register 500. Oh, this is page. Hmm, this is strange. Because this particular call is returning error 500 localhost 3000 slash API. Then page 40 in this. Let's see page 40. This one. How is this returning anything? Hmm. Something strange is happening that I'm not aware of. Let's try one more time. So at least we saw the submitting this. Submitting, where is that one? Submitting registration details. We saw this, but it failed again, which is likely coming from here.
Can you please go back to the registration form? That's
Registration
on the
form.
UI. Yes.
This you meant?
Yeah, click on put the code at the end of the email input field.
This one?
Yeah, just hit space in front of it. Yeah.
Space, as in this.
Yeah, and yeah, now go back, then backspace again. Do the same thing for the organization name.
Oh, as in if there are spaces.
No, just take it back. I'm just trying to test out a theory because I know I've faced sometimes before where it has to do with the input field. I get any field that is being auto completed. he doesn't
So
send it as a text. So just like the organization, you can see that the field color is different. So just click on the
I
end of the line,
no, I don't think
go
so.
back.
No,
Yeah, you can try to send it.
no,
But
no.
so
If
okay, because I
I
know I had this
understand,
kind of issue
no,
last
I
time.
understand what you are saying, but that is in cases where it is going with some extra space that you do not want. Right now,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
issue is that this core is what is not going through. Because if we come in here in the route, inside the routes where we are, if it gets here, at least this should run. Okay, like at least this should run, but it is not running. And that's where the problem is. Why is the core not getting here? That is the challenge. Wait. Okay. So here it says at least now export this on this cannot be used with output export. I don't even see why we need to export this as such. Let me try deleting this in the first place. I don't see why. Seriously, do not see why. Okay, so now it just blatantly says registration failed. And when you check here, page with dynamic is equal to error couldn't be rendered statically because it used request.json. Use request.json. Hold on. Let me just try this. Can we try using Azure's for the core or something else? Or use SWR? I don't know why it would even happen. No, SWR was goodness. That was if you are making a get call. Okay, let's try installing Azure's and use Azure's instead of Fetch, and let's see if that solves the problem. Because this call is not going through because the server is not responding. But why is the server not responding? I have no idea now. Okay. Let's try if we're going to end up with the same error. Install SWR. All right, let's try. Hope you're not broken. Still have this same error here. This is strange. Not valid. Wait, is it coming from? Hold on. Next odds middleware. Where's the middleware? Because if it's an unauthorized one, that shouldn't appear as such. Let me just copy this. Ooh, this is not. It's the one reason why I'm going to have to use my own code base for these things. Um. Anyway, it's all part of the learning experience, so it's fine. Let's see. First update the next all configuration. Let's update the odd options to probably handle the adapter. Update the env file to include proper secret To run this to get the secret, I need to use get bash. Get bash. Run this. Okay, and copy this. Go to the env. Oh no, they change my thing again. I was going to change my database again. Okay. Then afterwards, we should make sure these things are installed. They are all installed already. Then do we really need to come back to this issue again? Well, that is ongoing. Let's try refresh this. Still don't know why this thing the first time. Oh, still a server error. Let's see. Run it one more time and see. Okay. So we are still having these issues. Page with dynamic is equal to error couldn't be rendered statically because it used request or JSON. Just hope it also has nothing to do with cached node modules. My good friend Google, where are you? Okay, I think I know the best place to go. Since the error is occurring because we need to explicitly mark the registration route as dynamic, let's fix this by updating that. Also create a route segment config file to ensure the route is properly configured. This is something I've never had to do. So it's looking strange to me. Hold on. I'll pass this to Claude directly and listen to what it has to say as well. What could be wrong and how do I fix it? Then come back here, copy this for you. Based on the error message, the issue is related to using request or JSON. In a Next.js API route that's marked with dynamic is equal to error. This causing a static generation conflict. First, find your generation registration API routes. You need to add export configuration to explicitly mark the route as dynamic. Add this. So your route should look something like this. Okay. The issue occurs because Next.js tries to statically optimize routes by default. Request.json is a dynamic operation that can't be performed during static generation. By setting dynamic is equal to this, you're telling Next.js that this route should always be handled dynamically at runtime. This is a common issue when building API routes in Next.js, especially for operations like authentication that need to handle dynamic requests. Alternative approaches is if this doesn't solve your issue, use Edge runtime or disable static optimization for the entire API. Interesting. I guess if we try, if we try and it doesn't work, I guess we would disable it as a suggestion, at least for the time being. It's still not working. Same issue. Middleware cannot be used with outputs. What? I'm going to try this for the last time. If it doesn't work, I have to find a different route around it. Oh, so if you look at the boilerplate implementation that I have, this is pretty simple. So did I implement it? Yes, I think so. So the registration form, let's go to registration form. See, alt register form. Alt register form. In component, okay. In component, there's alt register form. Okay. Hmm. Okay. So I use a totally different approach. Oh, that is strange. Last trial. If this doesn't work, we're going to have to find our way around it. Oh, says registration successful. Please sign in with your credentials. Hmm. Oh my god. I have to go and look at what it actually did to make it work. Because the next time I face this problem, all right. So at least now we know that registration is going through successfully. But you need to understand what it did using next request. So the error is occurring because we need to configure Next.js properly for API routes. Let's fix this by first create or update your next config. Next config. What did you do to it? I don't remember what was here. Hmm. So this is what was originally in here. And now is what's in here. Output is standalone. Experimental server actions is true. Interesting. Then remove dynamic and configure spot. So in that case, I guess we can get rid of this. Then simplified error handling using proper Next.js API route patterns. This should resolve the static generation and middleware errors you're seeing. Okay. All right. At least that has been solved. It redirected to slash login, but the login page is not working. Oh, this file has been deleted already. The login is not working. Why? Oh, you went to not the login rather. Okay, so let's find where this is redirecting to. After successful registration. Oh, so wait, use register. So it's now abstracted it. Interesting. So here making the easiest score here. Ooh. And the AI is doing stuff and you don't pay attention. So it abstracted it into a separate component. Then once that has been received here, we await it. And if it is successful, we proceed to do this. Then we are pushing to log in. So why did it go to this route instead? Or login is the one causing the problem. Login. Oh no. Log in. Login is redirecting somewhere else. We need to pay attention to it. Do we have any other login? Nope. So this is the only login. And this is the redirecting somewhere else. From slash dashboard. Call back your and you push to the callback. That's so I think this part no this is even the handle submit. So that's when you click on handle submit. Hold on, let me comment this out to see what's happening. I don't know why it's automatically redirecting. Login. Log in. Hey, why does this register thing? Okay. Localhost 3000 slash login. Let me try it. Still redirecting. So that is not a problem. Why is it redirecting? A lot of strange things happening today, and I just do not know why. The middleware. Would the middleware be the problem? Mid why would we add this to the middleware? Localhost slash login. Ah, I wonder why it added the login to the middleware because this is the protected route. So if you add middleware, the login page to the middleware, what you're saying is that you need to be logged in to be able to access the middleware. But if the person has not logged in and they want to log in, why are you still checking that here? So that was the first problem. Now that has been handled. We are running into another problem. On submit, it's not defined. Handle submit. Oh, I've not saved the changes. Okay. Okay. If I tell you I remember what password and things I used in the previous one, I don't remember. Out of frustration, I just clicked things and went. So let's try again. And this time around, let me use my own email. Say 123 as a password. Also test organization with this. Let's see what happens. Okay, good. I use my own email password. I use 123. Then let's sign in. Does it work? Oh, finally. Finally. Okay. So at least we've made progress now. Our authentication system is working. That is one of the biggest headache that we always have. So once that is sorted, and that's why using things like Click makes this way easier. Anyway, now we are done with authentication. Let's go back to our to do. set up authentication. That is done. No, not completely done for this, but at least we are done with the email and password. That is fine. We have the protected routes middleware, role-based access control. It's also another bulky part. I do not know if we want to tackle that first or we want to tackle. So I think I would want to implement these first. The user management, not even user management, because we don't have ability to create users in here. Would have to add those ones. So maybe manage. Let's proceed with this instead. At least if we are able to work on this for today, we can continue the rest the next week. Next week, I think I may have class. Okay, let's see. The authentication is working fine now. Can we proceed to work on the other, the main functionalities of the platform, like schedule management, time clock, etc. Let me see what it comes up with. Imagine if you're not a developer and you're using just the AI to do some of these things. The kind of frustration that you can go through sometimes just because the AI is using something that it's not supposed to use. I don't want to be in those shoes right now. I know like over time they are getting better, but sometimes I don't know, as the AI get lazy sometimes, I can't tell. But certain times you have to, like, I think about 3 days ago or 4 days ago, I was doing something and inside here, Kesa is asking me, should I proceed with it? And I say yes, proceed. Then it will run and get back to me and ask, should I proceed? Meanwhile, it has not done what it said. It asked me earlier. I said, yes, proceed. Then it will run for a long while and come back. Should I proceed? Like, what the hell is wrong right now? Like, why? Anyway, says schedule creation, shift management, schedule view or calendar. Yes, let's start implementing the core function. Looking at your to-do, let's begin with schedule management. Since it's central feature of the platform, we create this. Then let's create a custom hook for managing schedules. Would you like me to continue with the schedule creation dialog components? So I just say proceed. Proceed. And say at times it uses deprecated libraries. Yes, that causes dependency issues. Yeah. That's why when you're building this, you usually want to tell them the version that you want, especially with Next.js 14, but not just 14. Which routing do you want? Is it the page routing or the app routing? So you tell it all of that. If you know a lot about this, it's always good to be explicit about it and say, this is what I want you to use. Like use exactly this one. Otherwise, we run into the kind of frustration that we just ran into. Oh, sorry. Okay. So it's error connecting to database. Anyway, would you like me to add shift creation functionality, create a calendar view component, add schedule editing capabilities? I'll just say proceed, proceed. But as long as we don't have an error, keep proceeding. Hopefully, it's doing something sensible. Let's check the API that is being created. So now we have the schedules to create a schedule. Okay. Unauthorized this. Then let's use interface. Let's see, create a schedule. Oh, it's here. This is compiling. I can see there is an error now. This, you fix this before you continue. So usually that's what you want to do. Sometimes I make it continue like that and the errors pile up, especially the TypeScript errors. Then when you ask it to fix it, hell breaks loose. You struggle and struggle and struggle. So nowadays, what I try to do is if there is any error that comes up, if I know about it, I just go in and fix it. If not, I try to fix it before I proceed. Okay. Now say proceed. Keep going. Let's try creating a schedule. Say test schedule just to make sure it is working. The date is from December 1st to December. Wait, I think yeah, this is really good. So the fact that we chose December 1st as the start date, we can't choose anything before December 1st as the end date. That's good. And the end date is a 31st and create a schedule. Fail to create schedule. Fail to create schedule. So now we know creating schedule too is a problem. Hmm. What could have the problem been? The database. So this is a problem that is coming from NeonDB and not necessarily our application because it couldn't connect to the database. And as I said, there are times that these things happen. So if you don't know, you beat yourself for life. So nowadays, I prefer to use my local the PostgreSQL server. But anyway, we try again. Test schedule, pick a date, the 1st December, then the end date is 31st. Then, oh, what just happened? Create. Ooh, it's an error somewhere in the code. So the database query went through, but there's an error in the code somewhere. Let's see if the data was pushed to our DB. Refresh this and schedules. So you can see that the test schedule has been created. So the error that we're seeing has to do with the display. Let's try and see if it fixes it. Ooh, I'm having some neck pains. Okay. Loading, loading, loading. You sure you're loading? Found out you're stuck in there. Hmm? Why is it making so? Are you serious right now? I guess I have to stop this. Why is it stuck in a loop of hmm? So let's just inform looks like the fetching schedule is stuck in a loop showing loading on the screen forever. Then drop this. Sometimes when I'm using the AI to do this, it makes me feel bad because you're doing it and you don't know what's inside the code. Ideally, you'd want to go in there and see what is in there, what is breaking, what is not. But now, because we have AI, it's more laziness than anything. Since the scarcer AI have token limit, maximum number of prompts one can post. Yeah, if you are using a free version, yes, it has such. I'm currently using, like, I'm on one of their pro subscriptions. So, yep. What's happening? Oh, I ended the sale. Ooh. Mm. So something here for us to also note. Invalid, there's options detected, expected object received boolean, then server actions are available by default now. So we can safely remove that. It's next. This guy only has old information. Okay. Ooh. So we have data in the database, but it's unable to pull it. I can confirm that there is data in the database, but it says no schedules found. At least if we are able to fix the schedule once, it should be good to take a pause. But for me, at least with all the headache, usually is the boilerplate setup of the authentication, registration, role-based access. Those ones are usually the headache. But hopefully that is sorted out now, so it should be good. Can you try these changes? Please, let's debug. First, let's check if the session and registration organization ID are being passed correctly. Let's add some debug. Can you try this? What appears in the console logs? What appears in the console log? Let's refresh this. Okay, so it's been able to pick it now. All right, the test schedule has been created. View details, what does it do? Zero shift assigned, but at least there is a schedule. So let's say this is the December schedule. And I don't think any of this is working. Okay. So now we can create schedules and also fetch them on the UI. Proceed. Ooh. So what that's done now is say let's implement a schedule details view and shift management. We'll create a new page for viewing individual schedules with their shifts. First, let's create a schedule details page. Update the main schedule page to include navigation to the details page. And would you like me to add a department and user management API routes? Create a shift. Let me just say proceed as we go back to see what it has done. Okay, so this is working. Okay, that is working. Next.js development server. Okay, let me say Next.js 14 development server is very slow. Very, very slow. What's happening? Shows that it has finished compiling, but still loading here. I'm not sure this is working. Okay, let's fix the type errors and implement the missing functionality for shift management. First, let's update the types. Now let's update the schedule details page to handle the shift creation correctly. Okay, so let's save this. Add API routes for fetching departments and users. Create the shift details, editing dialog. Add shift status management, something else. So let's prompt it to say the shift detail page shows loading and nothing else. Okay. Ooh. See, there is the saying now that before these AI tools came up, developers used to spend, say they'll spend 8 hours coding, or let's bring it down, say they spend 1 hour coding and they'll spend 4 hours. No, they said how they say it is like you spend 4 hours coding and you spend 1 hour debugging. Now you spend less than an hour coding and you spend over 4 hours debugging because the AI coded it for you. Like, that's where we are getting to. Okay. So the test schedule is now here. And I would even start in November when it is set to start from December 1st. So to add a shift, okay, so we have to implement all of these, the departments, the staff, before we are able to add this from the database. Okay. Added a back button. Okay, back to schedule. That's good. Then view. Pretty good. Okay. Let's now add, let's to add shifts, we need staff and departments. So can we handle those? Ooh. We can, it means we need a place where we can create departments. We need a place where we can create users as well. Let's implement the department and staff management functionalities. First, let's create the necessary API routes. Then let's create the department API. Proceed. So it needs to create, it has created the use department hook. That's the hook that we use to be interacting with departments, getting data from department related data. Then we need to create one for staff. Then finally, we have the UI for department and staff management. Okay. Waiting for you. All right. Create the staff list components, create a department creation dialog, create a staff, proceed. When everything is going well like this, man, it's so sweet. But when you get to the part where everything is not working, it's so frustrating. Anyway, let's see. I don't think they've added any. Oh, assign staff is optional. I didn't know that. Why is that optional? That's an issue. Let's create a staff management hook and create the UI component. Okay. Then staff list. Would you like to create proceed? Oh, there are some errors here. One is this. Copy this and paste it. Then this. And that. Let's fix these errors first. Uh, did they create any new routes here? Dashboard, inside dashboard, schedule, inside schedule, schedule ID, now page. Okay, current schedule. So type error. How about the UI that I was talking about? I didn't even see where it created it. Okay, team. Is it team? Let me check team. Hmm. These are all dummy data. These are all dummy data. Okay. The key changes are added all required properties to the shift interface, added a shift status type, exported the types. Okay. So now let's proceed. View details. Okay. Then select departments. These are still dummy data that needs to be fixed. I must not the best US right now if I have to type everything manually like that. And let's say they are closing at 2 p.m. So to create shifts. Anyway, let's create a staff creation dialog and team implement a team management page that brings together this. So let's go to team. Okay. Oh, okay. So now it's pulling the data from the database. That's admin. You can create a new, but there's no department. So let's create new department and say developers. Create that. Department created successfully, but I have to refresh it before it shows up or what. So that's one thing that we need to handle. Manage the state. Then let's create a new staff. John Doe, how are you? It's been a while since we used you. John at doe.com. 123 is your password. You, oh no, can't select department. Staff added successfully, and I have to refresh before. That's bad. Okay, so after creating a staff or department, I have to refresh before it shows up. Also, when creating a staff, I am unable to select the department because the drop down doesn't open or show any content. Hey, the time is really fast spent. It's almost 3 hours now. So we're going to wrap up with this. If we are able to create the stuff, add departments, that means at least we are close to being able to add a shift. So hopefully we finish up that with this prompt. Then next week, hopefully, if I I know I have lectures next week, but I don't know if there's a class on the Saturday. Oh, it's already night in Nigeria. I see. Yeah, so we can take a pause after we fix this. Excuse me. Sorry. So Jane, Jane Smith is Jane at smith.com. 123. Okay, so now this works perfectly. Then manager. Ah, it works perfectly, but then we still have to refresh before it shows up. Let's try another department and say designers. This one too, we still have to refresh before it shows up. That's not a big deal. We can always work on that state. I was hoping that we could create like add a shift. That would have been the highlight. So let's no. So we we now have stuff and department, can we handle the shift creation? Otherwise, we have to pause here and come back to it some other time. We have just 5 minutes to wrap up. So let's see if it's able to do that within the 5 minutes. Once this has been added successfully, I think the basic functionality is now present. Then we can explore all the additional functionalities. At least now we know that we can create our department, we can add new stuff. Then okay, says that added a new hook. Let's fix this error. Added a new hook for managing shift form data, automatically fetch department when the dialog opens, fetch staff members when a department is selected, reset user selection when department changes, only show staff selection after a department is selected. Validation for shift time, that would be good. Okay, so let's fix the error first. Then when we select, no, this is still the old dummy data that is there. Come on. Let me refresh this. Okay, good. So now we have developers, and was Gene Smith a developer, or I thought it was John Doe that was a developer? Designers. There's no one in designers. Oh, okay. So we didn't add John Doe to a group. Okay. So let's say 01 12 2024 and 08. They're starting at 8 a.m. and the shift will end on 01. This is not the best US at all, user experience at all, because can't be typing this every time. PM. Okay. Say test notes here. Creates. And yes, shift has been created successfully for month of December. Okay. Yes. It's working now. So we can see the shifts, let's say by the day, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So at least we have achieved something where we can now begin to delve more into it and fix it, if anything. Oh, wasn't the easiest of session today because of the frustration that came along with it. But I hope you have learned something at least, especially when it comes to debugging some of these issues. And one of the highlights for me is if there is something that you keep doing or it's repetitive in various projects that you do, it makes sense to have a code base that you can always run to and pick something from. So have to pay attention to that and make sure that I have these things handy so you don't waste the time that you do not have. Okay, so thank you all so much for showing up, and thank you for staying. Those of you who stayed true to this time, really appreciate it. All right, what's the name? Is it Kalku? CAA? Will you pronounce it Kalku? Anyway, thank you. I'm glad that you learned a lot, and hopefully, I would announce whether we meet this coming Saturday or not, because I have lectures this week, but I do not know if there is a class. I think I have a presentation on Saturday. So maybe we'll not be able to meet this Saturday, but the subsequent one, we'll continue and finalize this project. All right. Thank you, and catch you some other time. Until we meet again, it's bye for now. Okay. Bye bye. Live stream, where are you? How